Hi, I'm Fred Burton here today with my colleague Lauren Goodrich, and we're going to talk about the recent death of a Russian that was close to Putin in Washington, D.C. by the name of Mikhail Lesin. Lauren, who was Mr. Lesin?
Lesin was a very important person for how Russia's developed over the past decade and a half. He was intricate to the Putin system. He rose to be the press secretary underneath Putin.
Powerful position?
Very powerful position. He was in charge of pretty much consolidating all of Russian media underneath the state. Again, it was really Russia getting control again on information within Russia.
What was he doing here in Washington, D.C.?
That's a very interesting story. So Lesin was very close to Putin, as I mentioned. Towards the end of his career, he moved from being press secretary to being in charge of Gazprom Media, which oversaw an unbelievable amount of media inside of Russia. And he really created the Russian propaganda machine. It was very interesting that in 2014, at the end of 2014, he all of a sudden resigned. I mean, and for someone that's that close to Putin, that has that powerful of a position, for someone to just all of a sudden resign means something big had happened behind the scenes.
What do you think happened?
Well, the rumor is that him and another Russian that is very close to Putin named Yuri Kovalchuk ended up having a very big falling out. That was very prominent within the Russian media and stirred around the rumor mill pretty much. And then Lesin ended up fleeing Russia, or I should say leaving Russia, and then going to Switzerland. He stayed a month in Switzerland, and then he ended up coming to LA where his son and the rest of his family was.
And he's found dead inside a hotel in the DuPont Circle area, Washington, D.C. Help me understand a little bit about the scope of his injuries. This wasn't just a natural causes death, was it?
Well, initially, that's what everyone thought because sources close to the family ended up saying that he died of a heart attack. When he was found in Washington, D.C., it did cause pause for a lot of people who watch the Kremlin and watch the Russian elite because he is so prominent and to be found dead in Washington, D.C. But when it was said it was a heart attack, we all pretty much, I guess, cast it aside and went on. But then 4 months later, this past week, the Washington Examiner ended up coming out and saying, no, he was bludgeoned.
And the scope of injuries were pretty bad, weren't they?
Yes. Sources close to the Washington Examiner say that he was bludgeoned head, neck, upper torso, lower torso. I mean, a real overkill.
And from a messaging standpoint, what kind of signal does that send when you see that degree of injuries based on your experience from being a Russia watcher for so many years?
Well, I find it very interesting that these Russians that are considered almost defectors, those that are close to the system and close to the internal part of the Kremlin system, when they're found dead, it's not simple. It's almost like an overkill. Litvinenko, a case that you are very familiar with, being case in point, in that it wasn't a simple kill. It was more of a messaging system of not only to the defectors themselves, but also to the country where they are found. And that, say it was the Kremlin who was behind this, then the Kremlin would be likely messaging something along the lines of, we can act in a very brutal way on your turf.
I know violent crime happens. Is it feasible that this was just an act of random crime?
It's always a possibility. However, there's a lot of very interesting circumstances leading into Lesin's death that kind of lean the other way. The other part of the story is that once he was here inside the United States, he was under investigation by the U.S. Justice Department for corruption. That puts him in a very peculiar place, because if he fled Russia and couldn't have his assets or go home to Russia, or if his assets here in the United States were under threat, he doesn't have much left. The rumor is that he was possibly trying to make a deal on, I have corruption charges against me. Would you like me to talk in order to get those to go away? He is someone that is so high up within the Russian system, or was so high up within the Russian system, and that he knows Putin and he knows Kovalchuk. And Kovalchuk is such a critical person in that he is Putin's personal money manager, someone that would know the secrets of where Putin is hiding or stashing his cash.
So this is a man that literally knows where the bodies are buried.
Very much so. And so that's very powerful information in order to trade with the United States. And so having the corruption investigation against him within a year of his death, and a very brutal death, likely, it leads much more to the idea that he was likely taken out by the Kremlin.
Well, that's fascinating, Lauren. That's all we have time for today. For those of you who would like more information, please visit our website at www.stratfor.com. Thank you.